Here's something you don't know. In March 2017, a sci-fi horror movie hit theaters with two of Hollywood's biggest names attached, Jake Gyllenhaal and Ryan Reynolds, a $58 million budget, and marketing that promised the next Gravity crossed with the next Alien. Critics gave it a fairly ordinary 67% on Rotten Tomatoes. Audiences gave it an even colder 54%. By almost every normal measure, this movie should have quietly faded into forgotten streaming filler within a year, another mid-budget space thriller nobody brings up again. Instead, nearly a decade later, people are still talking about exactly one thing from it, the final 5 minutes and one of the most controversial space horror endings ever. This is the deep dive on the movie Life, and it might be the clearest example in modern sci-fi of a movie that critics and audiences both mostly called mediocre but which built a genuine, lasting following almost entirely on the strength of a single ending that a lot of people still call one of the bleakest gut punches the genre has ever produced. It's a strange kind of legacy, not a cult classic in the usual sense, not a box office disaster people love to dissect, just a competent, familiar space thriller that happens to end so well it retroactively made people reconsider everything that came before it. If you haven't subscribed, do so now. Welcome to the place of all your favorite sci-fi and horror breakdown. If you've subscribed, let's begin. The setup is deliberately simple. Aboard the International Space Station, a 6-person crew intercepts a returning probe carrying soil samples from Mars. Inside that soil is a single dormant cell. Exobiologist Hugh Derry revives it in a sealed lab module, and it starts growing almost immediately, first into a small, curious, almost charming little organism. A class of schoolchildren back on Earth even win a public contest to name it Calvin. For a few minutes, life plays almost like a nature documentary, watching this crew, led by Quarantine Officer Miranda North and Station Commander Roy Adams, marvel at proof that humanity isn't alone in the universe. David Jordan, the crew's medical officer and the one who's spent the longest continuous stretch of any human in space, watches with a quieter kind of wonder, someone who's grown more comfortable up here than back on Earth. Then Calvin gets curious back, and the crew realizes that the smartest, most efficient organism they've ever studied might also be the most dangerous thing any of them has ever been sealed inside a station with. And what's going to take place through the film is almost something you never want to imagine. Life came from Deadpool writers Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick. Directed by Daniel Espinosa, and was shot primarily on sound stages at Shepperton Studios outside London with a cast built around genuine star power. Gyllenhaal, Reynolds, and Rebecca Ferguson anchoring a crew meant to feel like real astronauts, not action heroes. To sell zero gravity, the actors spent much of the shoot suspended on wires that were painstakingly erased in post-production, a process the visual effects house double negative leaned on constantly to keep every frame floating convincingly through the station's cramped corridors. The film opens with an unbroken take of roughly 8 minutes gliding through the ISS. Handled separately by industrial light and magic, something Espinosa has described as the deliberate inverse of gravity. Instead of using a long take to show the vastness of open space, Life uses it to show just how claustrophobically small and cramped this station actually is. That single choice, establishing the geography of a space no one can simply leave, sets the tone for everything that follows. Every corridor, vent, and storage locker the crew moves through in that opening shot becomes a place Calvin can hide in later, so the film is quietly training the audience to read the station as a maze long before anything actually goes wrong. Reviews landed almost exactly down the middle. Critics generally praised the tension, the zero-gravity photography, and the cast's grounded, believable performances, while criticizing the film for leaning hard on familiar beats from Alien and other contained creature predecessors, and for characters who exist mostly to make the exact decisions the plot needs them to make to keep the body count climbing. A 67% on Rotten Tomatoes is the review score equivalent of a shrug, solid, competent, nothing especially new. Several critics said as much directly, comparing it unfavorably to the films it was clearly drawing from. Opening weekend backed that red up. against a crowded March slate that also included Beauty and the Beast, Power Rangers, and Kong, Skull Island, Life debuted in fourth place with $12.6 million, a soft number for a film carrying 2 stars of this caliber and a marketing push this large. It wasn't a disaster. It just wasn't the breakout its cast and premise seemed built for. What almost nobody saw coming was the ending. As Calvin picks off the crew one by one, the 2 remaining survivors, David and Miranda, land on a plan. One of them will lure the creature into an escape pod set to drift permanently into deep space, sacrificing himself in isolation forever, while the other pilots the second pod back to Earth to warn humanity what they're dealing with. It's the exact kind of noble, self-sacrificing plan countless sci-fi films have used to close out a story like this, and it fits David's arc perfectly, the crew member who'd already grown more at home in space than on the ground. Life sets the whole sequence up beautifully, right down to the framing and the score swelling like a rescue is actually underway. Then, in the film's final minute, it inverts everything without a single line of dialogue explaining it. The pods get switched. The organism ends up in the capsule heading toward Earth, not the one drifting into the void, and the last image the film leaves you with is a rescue team opening the wrong pod entirely, completely unaware of what's about to reach the surface of the planet. Life ultimately grossed $100.5 million worldwide against that $58 million production budget, technically a profit on paper, but nowhere close to the number a movie like this typically needs to actually turn a profit once marketing and global distribution costs get factored in. For a film carrying this much star power and this recognizable a premise, that gap is generally read across the industry as an underperformer, not a hit. It made its money back. It didn't make the kind of money that gets a sequel greenlit or turns Calvin into a recurring franchise villain the way Sony clearly hoped when it greenlit this alongside its other genre bets that year. In the moment, Life looked like a competent, forgettable mid-budget sci-fi film that came and went in a single crowded March weekend and then quietly left theaters within a month. Compared to the other big genre swings that same year, Kong Skull Island, Alien, Covenant, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Life barely registered as a talking point. It made money. It just didn't make noise. What's kept Life alive nearly a decade later has almost nothing to do with its opening weekend and everything to do with word of mouth about that ending specifically. Plenty of reviews and audience comments that otherwise call the film derivative or forgettable single out the final 5 minutes as something else entirely, a genuinely bleak, well-earned gut punch that a lot of far more acclaimed, far more expensive sci-fi films don't have the nerve to attempt. It's become a common recommendation in exactly one context, people specifically asking for horror or sci-fi movies with endings that actually stick with you for days afterward. The film's reputation has essentially inverted since 2017. It's no longer remembered as a mediocre Alien clone that came and went in a single weekend. It's remembered as the mediocre Alien clone with maybe the single best ending of its entire decade, the kind of finale genre fans bring up unprompted years later when the conversation turns to endings that genuinely commit to the bleakest possible outcome instead of pulling back at the last second. So here's the real question with Life: can a genuinely great ending redeem an otherwise average movie, or does everything that comes before it matter just as much? Critics and audiences mostly agreed this one was forgettable for 95 minutes, and then almost universally agreed the last 5 changed the whole equation entirely. Where do you land on it? Worth sitting through the familiar middle for that ending, or is one great final scene not enough to save a middling movie overall? Let me know in the comments below, and let me know if you'd already forgotten this one existed before that ending got brought back up. And if endings like this are your thing, I've got more of these coming. If you enjoyed this video, drop a like, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Also check out our hybrid sci-fi and horror breakdown now. Thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next one.